Hello, I'm recording this video for 5.4 Finding the Zeros practice for those of you who weren't in class the day that we went over it. Now, for 5.4 Finding the Zeros, we have to show that the binomial is a factor of the polynomial. All that means is that you're taking this problem right here that you see. You find the x equals -2, and you do your synthetic division. So that's not something that we haven't done before, right? We did that whenever we were doing the synthetic division. So you look right here, you subtract 2 from both sides, and x equals -2, and you do your synthetic division with the box, and you go on from there. So we have 48, 36, -138, -36, but then we're missing a number, right? We have the fourth power, the third power, the second power, the first power, but we don't have a number by itself, so we still need that 0, and that happens frequently on this worksheet. So we do our synthetic division, where we bring down the 48, then we multiply 48 by -2 because that's what's in the box, and we get -96. Then we combine those, we get -60. We have -60 times -2 because that's what's in the box, and we get 120. Then we have 120 minus 138 is -18. -18 times -2 is a positive 36, so we end up with a 0. 0 times -2 is 0, and our remainder is 0. So we put a nice little check mark there because that means that we have done this correctly. Okay, we want to show that the binomial is a factor of the polynomial, and this is how you do it. You have a remainder that is 0. Now, we're not done with these instructions. It says to then factor the polynomial completely and identify the zeros. So we need to factor whatever's left over. Well, in order to factor whatever's left over, we need to have an equation for what's left over. So remember, we always start with a number, right, after your remainder, not including that remainder, after it. Then we have an x, then we have an x squared, and then we have an x cubed. So our equation is 48x cubed minus 60x squared minus 18x. We don't really care about this 0. It can go away because it's just a 0, right? You can disclude anything that's a 0. You just have to make sure that you have that place there. So we're factoring. Now we have to go back into the recesses of our mind to before, whenever we were doing quadratics and we had to factor something. Well, whenever we have to factor something, the first thing you have to find is your GCF. So our GCF here, from 48, -60, and -18, is a 6. But we can also take an x out of everything so that it's actually a squared function. So we end up with, whenever you divide, 8x squared minus 10x minus 3. Okay, so that's what's inside of our parentheses left over. Now we have to factor. So we can go over to the side of our page and say that we have 8x squared minus 10x minus 3, and we have to factor. So we're going to have to do it the long way, right? 8 times -3 goes in the top, so we have -24. -10 goes in the bottom, and you're looking for factors of -24 that add to -10. It's always factors of the top that add to the bottom. Well, factors of -24 that add to -10 are -12 and 2. But we can't forget those x's. Then we write our way around, starting with the 8x squared. So we have 8x squared minus 12x plus 2x minus 3. We group the first two and the last two so that we are now factoring by grouping, which is what we did on the last worksheet that we did, the 5.4 practice. What can we take out of the first two pairs, or the first two terms? We can take out a 4x. So we're left with 2x minus 3, right? Because you divide the entire thing by 4x, not just the 8x squared. Now, remember, we want what's inside to be the same in both. So if we already have 2x minus 3 on the right-hand side, and we ended up with 2x minus 3 on the left side, the only thing we want to take out is a 1. So we end up with 2x minus 3. Then, one of our factors is always what's inside. And the other factor is what we put together getting in the outside. So we'll have 4x plus 1. Alright, so we've factored. So our factors include 6x, and then what we just got, so the 2x minus 3 and the 4x plus 1. But you tried at the very beginning to see if x plus 2 was a factor of the polynomial. We got a remainder of 0, so it is. It is a factor of the polynomial, and so we have to include that in our answer. So we have to put that x plus 2 here. Now, the first part of the problem was to show that it was a factor, so you put a check mark. Now, I want you to underline your factors. Then, the very last thing we have to do is identify the zeros. And all that means is you take each factor, the 6x, the 2x minus 3, the 4x plus 1, and the x plus 2, individually, set them equal to 0, and solve for x. That will give you your final answer. So, I'm going to do that now. 6x equal to 0. If you want to solve for x, you divide by 6. Well, x still equals 0. That's one of our answers. 2x minus 3 equals 0. You add 3 to both sides. 2x equals 3. You divide by 2. And x equals 3 over 2. That's one of our answers. 4x plus 1 equal to 0. Subtract 1. 4x equals negative 1. Divide by 4. And x equals negative 1 over 4. That's our third answer. And our last answer we actually already did at the very beginning. X equals negative 2. So that's how you do these problems. Okay, first you do the synthetic division. Then you factor. Finally, you take your factors, you set them equal to 0, and you solve for x. I hope this helped. Have a great day.